Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Bits and Bobs Backshop. The mission statement for this channel is going to be restorations, revivals, maybe some repaints, remotoring, DCC and custom LED light upgrades. Basically what we're going to be doing is taking some of Roco's older models and making them run, look, and operate exactly like the new ones. So if that's what you're interested in, welcome aboard, and stick around because I think we're all going to learn stuff from one another here. First model we're going to do is work on a Roco BR18. This model I'm guesstimating is from about 1990 to 1994. It's a good running engine. I picked it up for a good price, around $80, tax, title, license, and dock fee. And it runs okay-ish, but we're gonna go ahead and take care of that. We're gonna go through the motor, go through the drive line. We're gonna get it basically set up all clean, get fresh lube in there, make sure it runs really well, so that when we go to step 2, which is going to be DCC and sound and lighting, we've already got a firm platform for a good start. So stick around and let's head to the bench. Alright, welcome to the workbench. Here we're looking at a probably early to mid 90s Roco BR18. I picked this particular unit up on eBay as lightly used. I've run it a little bit since then, but no accessories. This is a later model because both the tender and the locomotive have drive, although I honestly don't believe the locomotive side produces very much pulling power. It's not heavy enough in order to produce any real tractive effort, but if you guys have uneven track or something like that, it works out well because then your steam engine wheels continue to move even if they don't have much contact with the rail. Now, in order to get these two units apart, in order to service them, there's that large flat blade screw sitting right there, and that is connecting the locomotive drawbar to the chassis. I thought I had all the threads undone, but here a few more turns, and then it's a shouldered screw. You can kind of see the small threads. Here, I'll show it again. And now the locomotive and tender uncouple. You can see the wiper pickups on the drawbar. There's a little buffer spring that holds that pin in place, and you're going to be able to see the drive couplings right there on the tender and then in the locomotive firebox. It's a square drive unit. The motor is in the tender. And there will be 2 screws to take this base keeper plate off. It wasn't readily apparent to me. I've never taken one of these locomotives apart, this particular model. I did take apart a friend of mine's BR50 that was very similar. It had the tender drive as well as the gearbox inside the locomotive to drive the locomotive wheels. We're going to take this second screw out here, and it's a very precise fit. You know, in order to get some tractive effort, it needs to have a lot of weight, and most of this tender is die-cast metal minus the tender body, but a pair of tweezers gets rid of the base keeper plate, the small screw, fell out there. I'll put it off to the side, but at this point you could really see how dirty those gears are. The old grease and oil turned sticky, and that's a good reason why we're, you know, experiencing higher than normal current draw. The tender shell is removed. If you could see right in the middle of the tender there, those two square openings, I don't think I had enough light to go up in there. Those screws are very deep in there. And they screw the upper and lower half of the tender body together. I need to get a narrower flat blade in there. And these things, this locomotive has never been apart, which means the grease and oil in there, probably what, 35, 40 years old. So I've really got to look in there and line up the blade with the slot and then really crank on it to get these screws out. Going for the other side now. You could just see how tight they were. Now I unscrewed it what I thought was enough, but I'm going to roll it over now and pull the gearbox out. There we go. We'll set that off to the side for later. But I'm trying to separate the tender body from the chassis. And I'm like, did I unscrew the screws far enough? I mean, there should be at least a little play. Now keep in mind, there are no snaps holding this body beyond the screws. So I went in there, I unscrewed them a few more turns, and it ended up taking me a few times. I'll gently spread the body shell and then slam my hands on my desk so that I can free up that chassis. It just started to move. You could see it wiggling out there. There's the large metal weight inside the tender shell, and that also provides a clamping force for the motor. There's really nothing holding these motors in besides the upper and lower half of the chassis on these units. So that's a very good motor. I've had a lot of experience with these. If you wanted to replace this motor, a direct fit would be a Athearn Genesis motor. They are rebuildable. These are Roco motors. Those red end caps do pry out and allow you access to the commutator, and you're able to clean the brushes. But what we're going to do now is we're going to set this off to the side in a moment. I'm just checking bearings and trying to get a sight into what I could see about the commutator condition. But we're going to set that off to the side. And right now, if you lift up the end of the circuit board very carefully, get a decent angle, you'll see that there are the wiper pickups for the front wheels of the tender, the front bogie or front truck. And then those are the contact pads I'm pointing to right now that make contact with the locomotive drawbar pickups. I'm inspecting the solder connections. Everything there looks good. I thought maybe the gates or doors between the tender and the locomotive were going to fall out, but they're held in pretty good. Doesn't look like there was any factory oil done here, and everything looks really clean. So I'm just taking some medium weight oil and applying some oil to the inside portion of the bearing. This way you can kind of keep the excess from spinning off the back of the wheels like I got to do here. So any chance I get to oil an axle from inside rather than where the back side of the wheels are, I'll do it. I'll roll them through, work that fresh lubricant in there. They looked all really clean. The wheels were in good shape. There was no excess grease or oil laying around. Now, this brush I'm going to use to clean the chassis is the same kind of brush I use to clean body shells. And it's just a, what I think, a 1.5, 2-inch white brush for $1.50 at Home Depot. This one has a little bit of pledge revive it with the argon oils in it, and it really does a good job of cleaning things up and shining them up again. I'm inspecting the gearbox right now, looking for any wear on the warm gear, which is the one, well, now it's pointing straight away from us now. What we're going to do here is I'm going to get my mineral spirits, and this is odorless mineral spirits I get from Menards. Comes in a container, two-tone green with some white lettering. Towards the end of this episode, I'm going to go ahead and show you everything I use, the alcohol and the mineral spirits. But right now I'm plopping these parts in there, and that grease is really sticky. So while that stuff is pre-soaking, we're going to get into the motor. These brush holders end up getting released. Now you need to put a small flat blade screwdriver in between the front snout of the motor and that contact, and then once the screwdriver is in there, just give it a slight twisting motion, slight twisting motion, and then a little pry up. Again, this motor's never been taken apart before, so everything is really tight. I'm happy to see that the brushes are broke in, but there's still a lot of brush material left. Now, looking at this commutator, it's hard to see. I'll do better on that in coming videos, but you can see it's not shiny copper. It's pretty dark, pretty carbon covered. I'm going to remove the second one and make sure that both brushes are wore evenly. That's a good telltale sign if there's a problem with the brush spring. Pulling that out. And what's become immediately apparent to me is that when the motor was originally oiled, they had used too much, and over time it had crept up onto the commutator and caused the brushes to go soft. And this is what's plugging up the commutator. It's very important that your commutator is clean and that the insulating gaps between the plates are clean as well, because they get filled up with brush material, and brushes are made to pass current. So if they're across your insulating gaps, you don't have any insulation there anymore, and the motor's going to run slower if it runs at all. In extreme cases, it can cause overheating and commutator damage. I'm cleaning it up right now with some 91% denatured alcohol. I roll the Q-tip as I spin the motor so that there's always fresh Q-tip and cleaning solvent, the alcohol, cleaning the commutator. And I'll make several passes, and I'll do this 2 or 3 times. And you can see that the commutator was pretty dirty, but much better looking. But we need to get in there with like a wooden toothpick, something soft, soft plastic. Like if you have a plastic toothpick, that'll work. You just don't want to go digging in between the commutator pads with anything metal, because if you slip, you've just scratched that surface, and that'll wear out your brushes much faster and make the motor noisier. Now I'm going in there with a wooden toothpick, and then I rub it back and forth in there really well. I'll do this as well 2 or 3 times to make sure all that junk is out of there. If you look closely as I pull the toothpick out, you'll see the end of it's already pretty black. So there was a lot of it in there. Now the brushes are in good shape. They do seem like they've had a little bit of oil on them, but I think with some denatured rubbing alcohol, we're able to get in there and get those oils out of the brushes so that we don't have any more future issues. So now what I'll do is I'll wet up my other side of the Q-tip and re-clean that commutator. This way we can get rid of what we just pulled out of those slots. Okay, so I'm gonna do that right now. And you want to be real careful, because there are tabs in there from the commutator to the windings, and they stick out. And the last thing you need to do is get your motor full of cotton bud material, and you can still see it's quite dirty. We pulled a lot of snot out of there. You just don't want to catch one of those tabs on the cotton and start pulling it into the motor. We could get it taken care of, but we'd need to pull, you know, flywheels and worm gears and everything else. Now you can see that that commutator really polished up nice. She's ready to go. Now we're going to turn our attention to the brushes. Now the brushes have got like a turn down end to them where they fit into the spring. So the spring and the brush, excuse me, are kind of seated together. They're a friction fit. So just be careful. I'm grabbing yet another Q-tip with some denatured alcohol, and I'm going to very carefully clean the surface of the brush, starting with the face that contacts the commutator. I'm going to get it all around the sides. You do want to be careful because you've got like a spring-loaded rocket here. If you push down or turn the wrong way, it will shoot to a spot you will never find. So be certain to support it, and that you're cleaning it very gently. I'm going to go ahead and get this one done, and then we're going to zip through the second one. So she was pretty dirty as well. You can see we just sucked all those oils out of the commutator brushes. So now what we're going to do is get all that dried up, sticky, waxy grease off of the worm gear. So I'm going to make some room. Back comes the Tupperware container with some mineral spirits. I use a 1/2 inch wide artist brush. Does a really good job. Medium stiffness. You can get this in any Hobby Lobby or whatever like that for just a few dollars. And it lasts forever. And here I'll show you the medium stiffness here. I'll put it up against the inside. You can see it's, you know, it's got some firmness to it so that it'll be able to get in there and get all the grease, all the grime right out of those low spots of the motor. I'm going to go ahead and set this off to the side and let that completely dry. And we're going to get into the gearbox and the other parts of the tender. So same thing, brushing it really good. Make sure you get the axle slots, the square slots, because grease rides up in there, gets hard and sticky. This is the bottom cover plate or the base keeper plate, and those recesses, when there's grease, can kind of clog up in there. So we want to make sure everything is really nice and clean. I'll even wash the outside, and then we'll set that off to the side to dry. I'm going to take one of the drive wheels and show you how I clean the axles and gears. Now these drive wheels, they have traction tires on them. Traction tires were good, but I just want to make sure that all the schmeg and whatnot is out from the teeth of those gears. for the time being, so everything can dry, I'm gonna put the gears back where they were so I don't lose track of them, I don't lose them, and I'll know how they're orientated. Make sure everything's rolling smooth, which it looks really good right now. I could see they went with a brass gear as the intermediate gear, just because I'm sure the engineers were concerned that making a nylon gear that small it may crack. But now we're back to the motor. The worm gear is dry, it's clean. I checked the end play. Now we're gonna install the brushes back into the motor. You want that brass side towards the inside of the motor. These will only go one way, and if your brushes fall out, make sure that the way they're broke in matches the curvature of your commutator. Otherwise, you could have issues. A little bit of alignment, there we go. She'll snap right in. There we go. Same way for the other side. Brass part towards the inside of the motor, a firm snap, and just a rotation to make sure everything feels like it's seated correctly. Now what we're going to do is give a little bit of oil. Now for the motor, I use a heavyweight gear oil like 80/90 synthetic. And the reason I do this is I want to keep the creep of the oil to a minimum. We are on the brush side, so we don't want to have the same situation that happened from the factory happen to us again as we're enjoying this model later on down the road. So I'll do the same thing for the back bearing. I like the heavier oil on a motor just because they usually carry a large brass flywheel like that, and the extra thickness of the oil will make sure it stays put when it's rotating. Alright, we have one more piece. It is this circuit board, electrical pickups, contacts, and what we're going to do is clean these contacts as well as the wheel pickups and the tender wheels that I have here. So I'm gonna take some of my trusted WD-40 contact cleaner. This stuff is great. A couple of cotton swabs, and we're gonna get to cleaning. I apologize about the first half of this video. I have been having major equipment issues, most of which I don't understand how to work electronics. I can do this stuff, but I have issues with like cameras and software and editing things. Now, this contact looks a little bent. So what we're going to do is come in here with a flat blade, like a bill nose, and straighten that up. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Alright, let's give it another squish. Clean both sides. Alright. Well, watch out for the fuzzies. It's already starting to tear up my Q-tip there. But they were pretty dirty. There's so much light here, it's hard to see. But let's use the other side now. Clean off the wheels. and I'll just drag it through, rotating it. Oh, yuck. That's pretty bad. Once we're done with this, we can go to reassembly. Whew, these were dirty. All right. Yeah. All right. First part that goes in, circuit board. It's going to tab in, and I don't know if you can see how that fits. If you look up in here, you can see how the contacts just kind of slide in. Just kind of slide in there. Come on now. There we go. So that's it. Now we'll take our gearbox. We'll set this off to the side. Take our gearbox. We're going to grab some light lubricant for the pins. Just a little touch. Now this is our worm gear. It's a double cut. That'll go in first. Feels really good. We'll put in our little idler. Nice mesh. All right. Now we'll put our side on. And everything locks together. Looking good. Now we'll go ahead and slide this in. I don't remember which way she goes. That looks like it. Alright, now I use Super Lube, and I like this stuff in the small bottles, in the small tubes. Gives a really nice, easy dispense. You can get it dispensed very easily. Give it a little roll. Just a little touch all the way through. And then we'll go ahead and put some on the worm side here. Uh-oh. Hate it when that happens. There we go. You know what? Before we go any further, let's get the gears, the wheels in there. Now I use a little touch of grease on each of these bearings. Just a little touch. I like the grease. It doesn't waller around and it kind of stays in place. It gives a little extra cushion than standard oil would. Work that through a little bit. And now we're going to put our cover plate on, but we need Come on now. She's fighting me, and I think I figured out why. Helps if I had it go the right way around. There we go. Let's move these out of the way. Let's get my tweezers in. And just nudge her over. There we go. Now, there's a small flat blade right here. We'll drop it in. And then get a screwdriver. Snug this down. We'll put the coupler back in. And then you want this tab at the top there. Alright. Slide this guy in. Will it go in? Probably not. Just notice there's a pin right here. Let's see that. And that fits into a, see the hole? Now let's bring that back down. We'll snug this up again. And then take a longer screw here. This one's Phillips. Got our coupler back. And now it won't all fall apart when we try and put the motor in. Alright, let's work that oil through, grease through. Alright. Have our motor. Like to give it just a little touch. What I want to try and do is get it inside the grooves. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but I got a train running. Now, let's roll this in. Make sure you get a good mesh, and we do. We'll roll it over a little bit, work that grease in there. Alright, now we can put the tube, the tip back on the tube. And we'll give this tender body a little brush. All right. Let's see. Here's the flywheel opening, so we know this goes on this way. So now we'll just slide it together. Boy, this is sure fiddly. Yeah. Motor rolled out. There we go. Come on. All right. Gates still move. Motor still turns. All good things. We'll get... You could just barely see in this hole how deep that is, but we'll blindly drop it in there. Hope for the best. And let me get a screwdriver. She's being fiddly. Everything's lining up. There we go. The other side. There we go. Little wiggle wiggle. Yep. Until my magnetic screwdriver pulls it back out. Golly. What a fiddly piece. There we go. Let's try it try number 600. There we go. All right. Make sure the wheels move. Yep. Moving good. She feels nice and loose. So we are done with the tender. We'll set her off to the side. Now on to the locomotive. Remember, we've got that gearbox in here, and the shaft that the motor and the tender spins is right here. And if I was to turn this, there you go. You can see I'm moving the wheels. So I believe this just unsnaps. So I'm going to give it a little tug. There we go. Pulls off. And let's see. All right, let's go with these screws here and here. What do we got? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Hopefully those both drop out. It's actually almost a week later from when I started this video. I have a normal 9 to 5 job, and I get pretty tired. There we go. All right. And it looks as though we have some room up here in the front for the speaker for later on. Even the decoder. And I don't know if y'all can see that, but there is a gap at the very top here where we should be able to run our wires. Now some of these newer units the upper and lower half do not come apart. And that's kind of looking the way this one is. So we'll have to do some creative fishing to get it in there. Yeah, we can't do a firebox flicker for obvious reasons because the way that it is, but maybe we'll get creative with like the ash pan or something like that. So we'll set the body off to the side. Let's go ahead and give her a quick brush while we're out. Got her in our hands. Alright, that's looking good. Some of these models, these are metal. Well, all these models, these are metal. The handrails are metal, but some models that'll come, depending upon how they're stored, they can come with a little bit of surface rust. Fear not. What we can do is take a little bit of WD-40 on a Q-tip, rub it back and forth, let it sit, and then take the dry end of the Q-tip and wipe it off. And that'll clean it up really well. Looks like I dislocated the reverser. So I'll take that out for the time being. Set the body there, off to the side. The reverser there. The firebox, the tender truck. There we go. Alright. Now, this pops off. And let's see if we can get this unsnapped without it shooting across the room. And let's see here. Now there's a recessed fitting, which you really can't get anything into. But then if you look really carefully on this side's a little different. It has two snaps, one here and one here. So I'm going to try and work it up from this direction. And it looks like it's working out okay. It's already released. There we go. We're gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up. We're gonna pull this out. Don't lose the shim washers. I'm gonna put that in there. Dear Lord, that's pretty dirty. This will be the side to get the gearbox off. You see that screw right there? So let's get that out. Put that screw up over here. Let's go in here. Come on. Alright. So it looks as though this gearbox is almost a mirror image of the one that's in the tender, which basically makes sense because you kind of want them geared the same. You don't want the locomotive trying to pull or the tender trying to push. So we're going to remove these 3 screws. I think I might have to remove that front one. That's why I said 3. Let's get this out of the way. We'll clean these wheels. It stymies me why they use flat blade as well as Phillips. Was this some kind of a transition locomotive? If anybody knows, put it in the comments section there. I've been modeling for most of my life. Let's just call it almost 50 years. So I've got a lot of experience when it comes to American models. But probably about 6-8 months ago, I ended up getting into European, and I'm really enjoying it. So it's been a lot of fun. And let's get these gears out. Learning a lot. I don't see an excessive wear on the teeth for the gears, so that's good. Alright, because we're not taking all this apart, I'm going to be cleaning this in the mineral spirits just kind of the way it is. Brushing it, letting it dry. Cleaning the gearbox, cleaning these parts, bottom. The bottom's pretty well caked up, so. Look at how sticky that grease is. That's crazy. Alright, everything's cleaned and dried, and what I'm going to do here is, you've already seen me clean and reassemble the tender. The locomotive is pretty much the same. We're going to grease the axles, we're going to oil the pins that the gears ride on, and then we'll put some grease in the gears. We'll put the warm gear back on with the shims. But we're gonna speed this up a little bit just due to the fact that this video has already gone on long enough. So let's get to it. on to the last few things. We need to put our coupler back in to our drive right there. So let's get that snapped in. There we go. You can see the square drive. And then here is the tender square drive. It's going to be a little fiddly. There we go. So we have full engagement now. Now, let's put the final piece of the puzzle back together again, and we'll take it to the bench. See how she runs. You can see how that buffer spring works there. Okay, that's it. Let's get her to the track. Well, there she is, all clean and healthy. She's running good. Far better than she was before. I should have showed a video of her before, but I apologize. Consist isn't prototypical, but she still looks good doing it. So, we cleaned and serviced a motor, 2 gearboxes, a steam engine chassis, a tender chassis, and got her all put back together again. Current draw is about half where it was before. So guys, if you're finding out your locomotives are running sluggish, slow, and you're getting warm pretty quick, this engine originally was pulling over a half amp, running just the way it is. Now she's pulling just under a quarter of an amp, or 0.22, 0.25. So far better. I've got some plans for this locomotive a little further on. We're going to add DCC sound, custom lighting with inspection lights under the running board, maybe do something with firebox flicker from the sides, because there's not much we can do due to the drive shaft in the cab. But we'll maybe do a cab light somehow. We'll see. We'll come up with some ideas. But if you do like what you've seen here, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And this is Bernie with Bits and Bobs Backshop. Hope you all have a great day.